Hello there and welcome into another edition of the JayMac Podcast. So glad that you are here with us as we answer a rather strange question today. Whether or not police should have to leave their guns behind to buy ice cream. Now, why in the world would we be asking this question? Seems a little ridiculous. Well, I will share that with you coming up and how I think it's an example of what happens when there is a lack of leadership and when we allow narratives to go way too far. But before I share the answer to the question with you, let me thank a few of you who have become patrons to the podcast over the last week. Charity, LCF, thank you. Hayden K. and S. Wilkinson, 14, thank you, all of you, for committing to a monthly donation to keep this podcast up and running. And again, the goal is to where I can do this full time and bring you fearless honesty every single day as we deal with the madness that is the world today. Just click on the link in the description and you can become a patron. Check out the link also on our social media and share it with everybody that you know. So let's get to why we were asking the question about whether or not you should have to leave your gun behind if you're a police officer just to get some ice cream. Here's the story.
A sign at a popular Seattle ice cream shop is sending a loud message to local police officers. Molly Moon's Ice Cream on Capitol Hill posted that sign, telling officers if you're armed, you're not welcome inside their business.
Matt Lorch is there with more from the owner who's taking heat and police who are offended by it.
So here's the sign right here. You can see it's directed right at police officers saying if you have a gun, don't bother coming inside.
This is like my house. This is private property.
That's Molly Moon Neitzel, who says her new sign to police has her getting threats on social media while she defends the decision to put it up.
People see it as anti-police. Are you anti-police?
I am anti the current police system. Yeah, I think we need major police reform.
Do you understand that that may make a lot of people upset?
I do.
She says some of her employees felt intimidated by police after they cleared out the nearby Capitol Hill organized protest zone last week, and after a patron paid $500 so officers could come in and get ice cream for free.
We had, I don't know, a few hundred come in packing their guns, and it was making my employees feel uncomfortable.
Customer Carl Smith heard about the sign. He showed up to give her a hug and drop $500 of his own.
Anyone who comes to Molly Moon today, ice cream's on me. And I just really support what she's doing.
Still, not everyone is joining the ice cream party.
We're human beings. When we do this job, we took an oath of service to serve at the will of the community. And I don't think that the reasonable community of city of Seattle support a business saying, we allow police, but they can't be armed.
Mike Solon, president of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, says the sign is political pandering that could backfire.
Have a conversation, and maybe we can enjoy ice cream at your great business, but we're going to do it while armed.
You know what is not my job as an ice cream maker? The rules of when police officers can have their guns and when they can put them down. And I don't want that to be my job. I don't care about that. But if they want to come into my shop and buy ice cream without a gun, they are welcome.
A message dividing a community that really is a sign of the times.
Molly Moon says business is down more than 50% this year due to the pandemic. She actually knows that the sign may alienate more customers and says it's up to the individual employees to ask police officers who are armed to leave. On Capitol Hill in Seattle, Matt Lorch, Q13 News.
Oh, Molly Moon, where do we even start? I'll tell you the first thing that jumped in my mind, all you Seinfeld fans.
No soup for you.
Yeah, no soup for you because you are armed. I don't even know where to start with Miss Molly Moon and her saying that she doesn't want to be the one who has to decide when cops get to wear a gun and when they don't. When that's exactly what she's doing. It's trying to be the one to decide. And then her employees who have complained of feeling uncomfortable, which I don't know if I believe, around an armed police officer, she's left it up to them to ask the officers to leave the store if they're armed. It seems like she's setting up controversial situations. And the bigger issue is, and now obviously I just want to stop for a minute. I mean, this is an anomaly, I hope, that this isn't happening across the country. But it's an example of what happens when you're fighting an issue and you take it too far. You actually become the thing that you hate. And this is something that I've talked about for years on the radio. And it's a warning to everybody out there that is fighting for an end to police brutality, fighting for an end to racism. There is a risk anytime you engage in a battle against some type of civil injustice. The risk is that you take things too far and you actually become what you hate. So I'll give you an example of how this is playing out at Molly Moon's ice cream store. She obviously doesn't like the current police system. She obviously has an opinion about the police brutality that's been going on, and she obviously wants to raise awareness for that. And what she doesn't like is the belief that police treat Black people or African American people differently. And she doesn't like the belief that cops judge all Black people in one way. And let's be honest, that's the crime. You judge an entire group in one direction, and then you treat them differently because of your judgments. And you treat them worse because of your judgment. That's the allegation against police departments around the country. That because of systemic racism, they pull over Black people more often, they mistreat them more often, and they shoot and kill them more often. So what you don't want is a situation where any organization, any group of people, judges all Black people in one light. That would be what you're fighting against. But in doing so, you let your emotions take you so far in one direction that you're actually doing the exact thing that you don't want to happen to Black people. You're doing the exact thing to police officers. You're judging all of them based upon the actions of the few. It's the exact same thing you don't want to happen to minorities. You don't want them all judged by the actions of the few, or by the color of their skin, or by any other thing. You want them to be innocent until proven guilty, and treated as though they are respectable, patriotic human beings that are members of our society, and they should be left alone and treated with dignity, regardless of circumstances. So if you want that, and that's good enough, and an important thing to fight for all minorities, why are you so willing and so freely able to use the very same emotion and tactic and judgment against all police officers? And that's what's happening here. Why would you be afraid of police officers in your establishment that are armed unless you have formed a judgment against all officers? Now, you don't know all officers, and you don't see every single day the interactions that police officers have. And the respectful police officers, the ones who go out of their way to treat all people with dignity and respect, no, you have decided that you're going to judge them all based upon these videos that you've seen online. And I mean, that's the only way that you could be afraid of a police officer in your ice cream shop who is armed. I mean, what do you think? He's going to rob you? You think he's just going to randomly shoot you? If you've come to that conclusion that all officers are a threat to you, and so you don't want to serve them if they're armed, then you've become what you hate. You're employing the very tactic that you despise. And that is the danger. When you fight racism, that you push it so far that you become the racist yourself. And you start saying, well, all white people are this. And then suddenly white people have a problem with that. And so it's amazing to watch. And this is the danger of the protests that we've seen across the country. And it's the danger of a narrative where the media is constantly showing police officers behaving badly, because it instills in people the idea that all officers are bad. And it's just simply not true. And believe it or not, all officers deserve to be treated as though they are innocent until proven guilty as well. If you look at an officer and you are immediately assigning racism to them and their actions, then you are guilty of the very thing that you're asking them not to do. And so this is why driving around, I see the, the blue line flags, people coming out in support of police officers. This should not be a situation where it's one side against the other. This should be a situation where we identify officers that make the wrong choices. And guess what? Also individuals who make the wrong choices. Sorry. And we ought to judge each circumstance based upon the merits and what we see and what we hear. If we enter any situation with a preconceived belief about the individual involved, either because of their skin color or because of their uniform, then we have become the very thing that we are fighting against. So please, Molly Moon, in trying not to send a message, you obviously are.
Nothing for you.
And I would suggest that, as the individual you heard in the story suggested, talk to these officers. Get to know them. You might be amazed at some of the incredible individuals that there are out there. And you ought to be concerned that this type of narrative is going to make it harder and harder to recruit police officers. We are seeing them apply for retirement in the largest numbers ever. We are seeing applications to become officers drop dramatically. Because who would ever want a job where you are judged instantly by the actions of others and by the color of your uniform? Just like who would ever want to be judged by the color of their skin? It should work in both directions if we're being honest. So let's be honest, shall we?